He saw them, 2 7-year-old boys, his eyes staring back at him. Impossible. The woman holding their hands? The one he destroyed 8 years ago? She whispered, "I'm pregnant." He screamed, "Get rid of it! No children, ever!" She vanished that night. He thought she obeyed. He was wrong. She didn't terminate. She hid them, raised them alone. Built a life, protected them from him. Now she's back. Not crying, not begging. Shielding his own sons from their father. The most powerful crime lord in the city just realized. He's been empty for 8 years. His empire? Worthless. His throne? Hollow. Because the 2 boys with his face? Don't know he exists. Tonight, the man who controls everything can't control the only thing that matters. What happens when a king discovers his greatest mistake is still alive? The rain fell like a verdict. Cold. Final. Unforgiving. Dae-hyun stood at the edge of the warehouse district, his black coat soaking through, his expression unreadable. The city bent around him. Streets whispered his name in fear. Buildings cast shadows that belonged to him. 30 years old. King of an empire no one dared question. And yet tonight, he felt something he'd spent a decade burying. Unease. The deal was simple. A weapons trade on neutral ground. His men flanked him like silent sentries, their presence a promise of violence held in check. Across the lot, headlights cut through the rain. A black SUV. Dae-hyun's jaw tightened. The door opened, and the world stopped. She stepped out. Her. 8 years. 8 years since he'd seen that face. That walk. That fire in her eyes that once made him believe he could be something other than what he was. His breath caught, a crack in the armor he'd forged from ice and blood. Her name fell from his lips like a ghost. Amara. She didn't flinch, didn't smile, didn't collapse into the tears he remembered from the night she left. She stood there, rain dripping from her hair, her shoulders squared, her gaze steady. And then, 2 small figures ran from behind the SUV. Boys, identical, 7 years old. His heart stopped. They had his eyes, his sharp jaw, his dark hair that fell just slightly over their foreheads. They were laughing, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air, holding action figures and racing toward Amara like she was the center of their universe. "Mom, look! I got the red one! No fair! I wanted red!" The words hit him like bullets. Mom. Dae-hyun's hands curled into fists, his vision blurred. The rain, the cold, the armed men, everything faded. All he saw was them. His sons. The children he'd screamed at her to get rid of. The life he'd thrown away because he was too afraid to be weak. Amara bent down, her voice soft, her smile gentle as she spoke to the boys. "It's okay, babies. You can share." They hugged her, their small arms wrapping around her waist. And when she stood, her eyes found his. There was no accusation, no anger, just a quiet, devastating truth. She had protected them, raised them, loved them. Alone. Dae-hyun took a step forward. His second-in-command, Jin, placed a hand on his arm. "Boss?" "Don't." Dae-hyun's voice was low, lethal. "Don't touch me." Jin backed off immediately. Amara didn't move. She didn't run. She stood there, rain soaking her jacket, her chin lifted, her eyes meeting his like she wasn't afraid of the most feared man in the city. Because she never had been. "Amara." His voice cracked. He hated it. Hated the weakness, hated the ache in his chest. She finally spoke. Her voice was calm, strong. "They're mine, Dae-hyun, not yours." The words cut deeper than any blade. "You—" He couldn't finish. His throat closed. One of the boys looked up at him, curious. "Mom, who's that man?" Daehyun's world shattered. The boy didn't know him. His son didn't know him. Amara placed a protective hand on the boy's shoulder. No one, sweetheart. Just someone from a long time ago. No one. The king of the underworld, the man who controlled everything, was no one to his own children. Get in the car, boys, Amara said softly. They obeyed without question, running back toward the SUV, laughing about their toys. Amara turned to leave. Wait. Daehyun's voice was raw. She paused, but she didn't turn around. Why now? He asked. Why show up here? I didn't come for you, she said quietly. I came because this is neutral ground. I needed to pick something up. I didn't know you'd be here. A lie, or maybe not. He didn't know anymore. They're mine, he said, his voice breaking. Those boys, no. She turned now, her eyes fierce. They're mine. You made your choice 8 years ago. I didn't. You screamed at me. Her voice was steel wrapped in pain. You told me to get rid of them. You said children would make you weak. So I left. I built a life. I protected them from you. The rain fell harder. Daehyun felt something he'd never felt before. Regret. I was wrong, he whispered. Amara's eyes softened for just a second. Then she shook her head. It doesn't matter now. She walked away. And for the first time in his life, Daehyun didn't know what to do. The most powerful man in the city stood alone in the rain, watching the only thing that ever mattered drive away. Daehyun didn't sleep. He sat in his penthouse office, the city sprawling beneath him like a kingdom he no longer cared about. The whiskey in his glass was untouched. The reports on his desk, shipments, territories, rivals, meant nothing. All he could see were 2 small faces, his sons, 7 years old. They didn't know him. The thought clawed at his chest. Jin entered quietly, his expression cautious. Boss, the Kim family is waiting for your response. Daehyun didn't look up. Tell them I'll deal with it later. Later? Sir, they're threatening to... I said later. Jin hesitated, then nodded and left. Alone again, Daehyun pulled out his phone. He'd already done what he swore he'd never do. He'd searched for her. Amara Johnson. 26 when she'd left. Now 34. She lived in a quiet neighborhood 40 minutes outside the city. A small house. A normal life. She worked as a financial consultant. The boys, Elijah and Isaiah, attended a private school. Soccer on Saturdays. Art class on Thursdays. She'd built everything without him, and she'd done it well. Daehyun's jaw tightened. He wanted to be angry. Wanted to rage at her for keeping them from him. But he couldn't. Because she was right. He had screamed at her. He had told her children would destroy everything he'd built. He'd been 22 when he took over his father's empire. Cold, ruthless, efficient. Love was a liability. Family was weakness. That's what his father taught him. And he'd believed it. Until he met Amara. She was different. Fierce. Unafraid. She didn't care about his power or his name. She looked at him like he was just a man. And for a while he let himself believe he could be. But when she told him she was pregnant, he panicked. He screamed. He broke her. And now, 8 years later, he was the one broken. Amara stood in her kitchen, her hands trembling as she gripped the edge of the counter. The boys were asleep upstairs, safe. But for how long? Seeing Daehyun tonight had shattered the wall she'd spent 8 years building. She'd told herself she was over him, that she'd moved on. But the moment she saw him standing in the rain, his eyes hollow and haunted, she felt it all again. The love, the pain, the rage. She'd loved him once, deeply, desperately, and he'd destroyed her. Her phone buzzed, unknown number. Her heart stopped. She answered. Amara. His voice, low, broken. She closed her eyes. How did you get this number? I need to see them. No, please. The word hung in the air. Dae-hyun didn't beg. He commanded, threatened, took, but never begged. They don't know you, Amara said, her voice shaking. And they never will. They're my sons. You gave up that right. Silence then. I know. His voice cracked. I know I did. But I'm asking now. Let me see them. Just once. Amara's chest tightened. She wanted to say no, wanted to protect her boys from the dangerous world he lived in. But she heard something in his voice she'd never heard before. Regret. 1 hour, she said finally. Tomorrow, at the park on Maple Street. You come alone. No guards, no weapons, just you. Okay. And Dae-hyun? Yeah? If you hurt them, if you even think about dragging them into your world, I'll disappear, and you'll never find us. He didn't argue. I understand. She hung up, and for the first time in 8 years, she let herself cry. The next afternoon, Dae-hyun stood at the edge of the park, his hands shoved in his coat pockets, his heart pounding. He'd faced armed enemies, survived ambushes, stared down death more times than he could count. But this terrified him. He saw them before they saw him. Elijah and Isaiah, running across the grass, laughing, kicking a soccer ball back and forth. Amara sat on a bench nearby, her arms crossed, her eyes locked on him. She didn't smile. Dae-hyun walked over slowly. The boys stopped playing when they saw him. Elijah, or was it Isaiah, tilted his head. Hey, you're the guy from last night. Dae-hyun's throat tightened. Yeah, I am. Are you a friend of Mom's? He glanced at Amara. She didn't move. I used to be, he said carefully. Isaiah, the quieter one, he realized, studied him with sharp, knowing eyes. Dae-hyun's eyes. You look sad, Isaiah said. The words hit him like a punch. I am, Dae-hyun admitted. A little. Why? Because I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me. Because I made a mistake a long time ago, he said softly. And I'm trying to fix it. Elijah kicked the ball toward him. Wanna play? Dae-hyun looked at Amara. She nodded once. Barely. He picked up the ball, and for the first time in 8 years, Dae-hyun smiled. They played for an hour. Dae-hyun, the feared crime lord who commanded armies, ran across the grass like a child, laughing as Elijah scored a goal past him. Isaiah watched from the side, quieter, more cautious. But even he smiled. Amara sat on the bench, her arms still crossed, her heart breaking and healing at the same time. She'd imagined this moment 1,000 times, Dae-hyun meeting his sons. But she'd never imagined it would hurt this much, because watching him with them, seeing the way he looked at them, the way his entire face softened, she realized something terrifying. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't here to control them or claim them like possessions. He was here because he wanted to be. And that made everything worse. Because she couldn't let him in. Not into their lives. Not into her heart. Not again. When the hour was up, Dae-hyun crouched down in front of the boys. I have to go, he said quietly. Elijah pouted. Already? Yeah. But maybe I'll see you again soon? He looked at Amara. She didn't answer. Isaiah stepped forward. What's your name? Dae-hyun's breath caught. Dae-hyun. That's a cool name, Isaiah said. Then quieter. Do you have kids? The question shattered him. No, Dae-hyun whispered. I don't. Liar, his heart screamed. Isaiah nodded. Okay, bye, Dae-hyun. The boys ran back toward Amara. Dae-hyun stood, his chest tight, his eyes burning. Amara walked over, her expression unreadable. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me, she replied. This doesn't change anything. Amara, you have your world, Dae-hyun. I have mine. They don't mix. What if I left it? The words came out before he could stop them. She froze. What? The life? The empire? What if I walked away? Amara stared at him, her eyes wide. Then she shook her head. You can't. Why not? Because it's who you are. Her voice broke. You are that world. You always have been. I was wrong. It's too late. Is it? Silence. Amara's eyes filled with tears. I can't do this again, Dae-hyun. I can't let you in just to lose you. You won't lose me. Yes, I will. A tear slid down her cheek. Because your world doesn't forgive. It doesn't let go. And the moment someone finds out about them, about us, we're targets. Dae-hyun's fists clenched. She was right. His enemies were ruthless. If they knew he had children, they'd use them. Hurt them. Kill them. Then I'll protect you, he said fiercely. All of you. With what? Amara's voice rose. More violence? More blood? That's not protection, Dae-hyun. That's a prison. He had no answer, because she was right. Amara wiped her eyes. You got your hour. Now leave us alone. She turned and walked away. The boys waved at him from the car, and Dae-hyun stood there, frozen, as the only light in his dark world drove away. Again. That night, Jin found him in his office, staring at nothing. Boss, we have a problem. Dae-hyun didn't respond. The Nakamoto family knows. That got his attention. Knows what? About the woman and the kids.
Wait, if you're married or in a relationship, this message is for you. Do you feel like he doesn't really see you anymore? Like no matter what you do, he's distant, distracted. Almost like you're strangers under the same roof? The more time passes, the colder it feels. The laughter, the closeness, it's fading. And deep down you're scared. Scared that the connection you once had is slipping away. But it doesn't have to be this way. There is a path to being noticed, to being desired, to feeling close again. Scan the QR code now and take the first step. Don't wait. This moment, it's yours if you act.
His attention. Knows what? About the woman and the kids. Dae-hyun's blood turned to ice. How? Someone saw you at the park. Word travels fast. Dae-hyun stood, his entire body rigid. Do they know where she lives? Jin hesitated. Jin, do they know? Not yet, but they're looking. Dae-hyun's vision went red. The Nakamoto family, his oldest rivals, ruthless, brutal. If they found Amara and the boys. Double the surveillance, Dae-hyun ordered. Put men on her street, invisible. No one goes near that house. Boss, if we station men there, it'll draw attention. I don't care. His voice was lethal. If anything happens to them, I'll burn the Nakamotos to the ground. Jin nodded and left. Dae-hyun collapsed into his chair. He'd spent 8 years building walls to keep the world out. Now those walls were closing in, and the people he loved most were trapped inside. The threat came at midnight. A single envelope, black, elegant. Delivered to Dae-hyun's office by a messenger who disappeared into the shadows before anyone could question him. Dae-hyun knew what it was before he opened it. He'd received threats before, hundreds of them over the years. Letters soaked in blood, photos of mutilated enemies, messages carved into the bodies of traitors. But this one felt different. His instincts, sharpened by years of surviving in a world where hesitation meant death, screamed at him that this was worse. His hands were steady as he slid the envelope open. Years of controlling his emotions, of burying fear beneath layers of ice, kept his expression neutral. Inside, a photograph. Amara's house. The white fence. the garden she'd planted, the small porch with the rocking chair, and in the front yard, 2 boys, 7 years old, playing with a soccer ball, his sons. The image was taken from across the street, recent, maybe today. The angle was perfect, professional. Whoever took this knew exactly what they were doing. Beneath the photo, a note. Elegant handwriting, almost beautiful in its cruelty. Beautiful children. It would be a shame if something happened to them. You have 3 days to respond to our proposal. Otherwise, accidents happen, especially to children. No signature, none needed. The Nakamotos. Dae-hyun's hands began to shake, not from fear. From rage so pure, so absolute, it took every ounce of control not to destroy everything in the room. They knew. They knew about Amara, about the boys, and they were threatening them, threatening to hurt the only things in this world that mattered. Jin stood across the desk, his face pale, his jaw tight. He'd read the note before bringing it to Dae-hyun. "Boss," Jin said carefully, his voice low, "we need to move them, tonight. Get them out of the city, somewhere safe, somewhere the Nakamotos can't reach." "No." Dae-hyun's voice was cold, lethal. "If we move them, the Nakamotos will know we're afraid. They'll push harder. They'll see it as weakness." "Then what do we do?" Dae-hyun looked up, his eyes dark, empty of everything except purpose. "We end this, permanently." "How?" "I don't know yet." Dae-hyun stood, pocketing the photograph. "But no one threatens my family and lives to tell about it." Jin nodded. "I'll double the surveillance on her street." Quietly. "They won't even know we're there." "Triple it. I want eyes on every corner, every car, every person who walks past that house." Dae-hyun's voice was steel wrapped in barely controlled violence. "And if anyone gets within 50 feet of that property without authorization, you neutralize them. I don't care who they are." "Understood." "One more thing." Dae-hyun looked at Jin, his oldest friend, the only person who'd stayed loyal through everything. "Amara can't know about the surveillance. Not yet. She'll panic, try to run. And if she runs, she's vulnerable, exposed. What if she finds out anyway? Then I'll deal with it." Dae-hyun grabbed his coat. "I'm going there now." "Boss, it's midnight. I don't care what time it is." Dae-hyun's eyes were wild, desperate. "Those are my sons, and I'm not letting anyone hurt them." He was out the door before Jin could respond. Amara felt it before she saw it. The shift in the air. The silence that didn't belong in her neighborhood. She stood at her kitchen window, washing dishes from dinner, when she noticed the black sedan parked across the street. It hadn't been there an hour ago when she'd taken out the trash. Her pulse quickened. She dried her hands slowly, keeping her movements calm, controlled. Years of survival instincts she'd developed after leaving Dae-hyun, after building a life in the shadows, kicked in. She walked to the living room where Elijah and Isaiah were sprawled on the floor, watching cartoons, their laughter filling the space. Normal. Innocent. Safe. But for how long? "Boys," she said softly, keeping her voice steady. "Go upstairs, now." Elijah looked up, confused. "But Mom, the show's not over. Now, baby, please." Something in her voice, the edge of fear she couldn't quite hide, made them obey without another word. They ran upstairs, their footsteps echoing through the house. Amara locked the front door, drew the curtains, grabbed her phone, and called the one person she swore she'd never call again. Dae-hyun answered on the first ring. "Amara." "There's a car outside my house." Her voice shook despite her efforts to control it. Black sedan, tinted windows. "It's been sitting there for 15 minutes. I don't recognize it." And no one in this neighborhood drives cars like that. Silence. Then his voice, low and deadly calm. Lock every door, every window. Don't go near the glass. I'm coming. Dae-hyun, I'm already in the car. 5 minutes away. Stay on the phone with me. She heard it. The roar of an engine. The screech of tires. The sound of a man who would tear the world apart to protect what was his. Amara, listen to me. His voice was steady now, in control. The voice of a man who'd commanded armies, who'd survived impossible situations. If anyone tries to come inside, if you hear anything, you take the boys out the back door. There's a trail behind your yard. Follow it to the main road. My men are there. Your men? Her voice rose. You've been watching us? Yes. No apology, no hesitation. Since the park, I wasn't going to let anyone get near you. Amara's chest tightened. She wanted to be angry. Wanted to scream at him for violating her privacy, for making decisions without her consent, for dragging his world into hers. But right now, with a stranger's car sitting outside her house, with her children upstairs and fear crawling up her spine, she was grateful. They're moving, she whispered, peering through a tiny gap in the curtains. The car doors opened. 2 men stepped out. Dark suits, expensive. Their movements precise, controlled, professional. Amara's breath caught. Dae-hyun, I see them. His voice turned lethal. My men are tracking them through cameras. Stay inside. Don't open the door for anyone. Not police, not neighbors, no one. The 2 men started walking toward her house. Slow, deliberate, like they had all the time in the world. Like they knew she was watching. Like they wanted her to be afraid. Amara backed away from the window, her phone pressed to her ear, her heart slamming against her ribs. Upstairs, she heard one of the boys call out, Mom, what's wrong? Stay in your room, she called back, trying to keep her voice steady. Everything's fine. It wasn't fine. Nothing was fine. The men were halfway up her walkway now. She could see their faces in the streetlight. Cold, empty. Professional killers wearing expensive suits. And then, headlights flooded the street. 3 black SUVs screeched to a halt, blocking the sedan, surrounding it. Dae-hyun's men poured out. 8 of them. Maybe 10. Silent. Efficient. Weapons concealed, but presence unmistakable. The 2 men froze mid-step. And then Dae-hyun stepped out of the lead vehicle. He didn't run, didn't shout. He walked, slow, controlled. A predator closing in on prey. Even from inside the house, Amara could feel the danger radiating from him. This was the man she'd fallen in love with. The man who controlled the city through fear and respect. The man who'd destroyed anyone who challenged him. Dae-hyun stopped in front of the 2 men. He said something she couldn't hear. One of the men reached for his jacket. Dae-hyun moved faster. He grabbed the man's wrist, twisted, and dropped him to the ground in seconds. No weapons, no violence, just pure, controlled force. The second man raised his hands in surrender. Dae-hyun leaned down, his face inches from the first man's, and spoke. Whatever he said made the man go pale. Made him nod frantically. Made him look terrified. Then Dae-hyun stood, brushed off his coat like nothing had happened, and walked toward Amara's house. She opened the door before he could knock. Their eyes met. His were dark, haunted, furious, but also relieved. Are you okay? He asked, his voice rough. She nodded, unable to speak. He stepped inside, his presence filling the small entryway. The house that had always felt spacious suddenly felt tiny with him in it. The boys? Upstairs. Safe. He exhaled, his shoulders dropping slightly. For a moment, they just stood there. Then Amara's voice broke. This is your world, Dae-hyun. This is what I was trying to protect them from. Men with guns, threats in the middle of the night, living in fear. I know. His jaw tightened. And I'm going to fix it. How? How do you fix this? He looked at her, his eyes burning with something she hadn't seen in 8 years. Determination. By ending it. All of it. What does that mean? It means I'm walking away. From the empire. From the life. From everything. Amara stared at him, speechless. You can't. They won't let you. They don't have a choice. His voice was steel. I'm done. I'm out. And anyone who has a problem with that will deal with me. Dae-hyun, I mean it, Amara. He stepped closer. I spent 8 years building something that means nothing. And in one day, one moment of seeing you with them, I realized I'd thrown away everything that mattered. I'm not making that mistake again. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But she'd heard promises before. Seen him choose power over love. What about the Nakamotos? I'm meeting with their head tomorrow. I'm going to offer him a deal. What kind of deal? Whatever it takes to keep you safe. He looked toward the stairs where the boys were hidden. Whatever it takes to keep them safe. Tears filled Amara's eyes. And if they say no? His expression darkened. Then I'll make them regret it. She knew what that meant. Knew the violence he was capable of. But right now, with her children upstairs and danger outside her door, she couldn't bring herself to care. Stay tonight, she whispered. Please. He nodded. I'm not going anywhere. They sat in her living room, the house quiet except for the distant sound of the boys whispering upstairs. Dae-hyun's men had cleared the street. The sedan was gone. The 2 men, whoever they were, had been dealt with. But the threat remained. How long have you been watching us? Amara asked. Since the park. That was 2 weeks ago. I know. Why didn't you tell me? Because you would have told me to stop. He looked at her. And I couldn't. Not when I knew they were out there. Not when I knew what they'd do if they found you. Who are they? The Nakamotos? My oldest rivals. Ruthless. Brutal. They've been trying to take my territory for years. And now they know about us. Yes. Because of you. He flinched. Yes. Amara closed her eyes. I built a life here, Dae-hyun. A normal life. The boys go to school, they play soccer, they have friends. They don't know about your world. And I wanted to keep it that way. I know. But now they're in danger because of you. I know. His voice cracked. And I'm sorry. God, Amara, I'm so sorry. She looked at him, really looked at him, saw the guilt, the fear, the desperation. This wasn't the cold, calculating crime lord she'd left 8 years ago. This was a man who just realized what he stood to lose. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now I fix it. Permanently. How? By giving them what they want. Which is? Me. Out of the picture. Amara's breath caught. You'd really walk away? For you? For them? He nodded. In a heartbeat. She wanted to believe him. But 8 years of hurt, of raising 2 boys alone, of building walls to protect herself, it all made trust nearly impossible. I need time, she whispered. I know. And I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't let them get hurt, no matter what happens, no matter what it costs. He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. I promise, he said. On my life, I promise. Upstairs, a door creaked open, small footsteps on the stairs. Elijah appeared, his eyes wide, his expression worried. Mom? Is everything okay? Amara forced a smile. Everything's fine, baby. Who were those men outside? She froze. He'd seen them. Dae-hyun stood. Just some people who got lost. They're gone now. Elijah looked at him. Are you staying? Yeah, buddy, I'm staying. Good. Elijah nodded. Isaiah was scared. Isaiah? Dae-hyun's heart clenched. Where is he? In our room, under the bed. Dae-hyun looked at Amara. She nodded. He climbed the stairs, his chest tight, and found Isaiah exactly where Elijah said, under the bed, curled up, shaking. Hey, Dae-hyun said softly, kneeling down. It's okay. You're safe. Isaiah looked at him with those eyes, Dae-hyun's eyes, filled with fear. I heard yelling, Isaiah whispered. I know, but it's over now. Are the bad men gone? Yes. Promise? Dae-hyun's throat tightened. Promise. Isaiah crawled out slowly, and then, without warning, he wrapped his arms around Dae-hyun's neck. The boy was shaking, crying, terrified. And Dae-hyun held him, held his son, and made a silent vow. No one would ever scare this child again. No one would ever threaten his family, even if it meant destroying everything he'd built, even if it meant walking away from the only life he'd ever known. Because this, holding his son, feeling the boy's heartbeat against his chest, this was worth more than any empire. The meeting was set for dawn. Dae-hyun stood in his penthouse, staring at the city that had once been his kingdom. Every building, every street, every shadow held a memory. Deals made, enemies destroyed, power consolidated. For 15 years he'd ruled this place with an iron fist, and now he was about to give it all away. He didn't sleep, couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Isaiah's terrified face, heard Elijah asking if the bad men were gone, felt Amara's trembling hand in his. His empire had cost him everything that mattered, and he was done paying that price. Jin entered quietly, carrying a folder. His expression was grim. The Nakamotos confirmed. 6 a.m., the old warehouse on 5th, neutral ground. Kaido's coming himself. Dae-hyun nodded. Kaido Nakamoto, 50 years old, second-generation crime lord. Ruthless, calculating, and smart enough to have survived 3 decades in a world where most men didn't last 3 years. Rules? Dae-hyun asked. No weapons, no guards inside, just you and him. Jin paused. Boss, this could be a trap. It's not. How do you know? Because Kaido wants my empire, not my life. Dead, I'm a martyr. My people would never stop coming for him. But if I walk away voluntarily, that's a victory he can use. It makes him look strong, like he forced me out. Jin's jaw tightened. And you're okay with that? Letting him think he won? Dae-hyun looked at him. I don't care what he thinks. I care about keeping my family safe. The men won't understand. They followed you for years, some of them since the beginning. Then help them understand. Dae-hyun's voice was firm. I'm done, Jin. After today, it's over. And what about me? Dae-hyun turned. Jin had been with him since they were teenagers, had saved his life more times than he could count. Was more than an employee, more than a friend. He was family. You're free, Dae-hyun said quietly. Work for Kaido. Start your own operation. Walk away. Whatever you want. What if I want to follow you? I'm not going anywhere that needs following. I'm going to be a father, a husband if she'll have me, a normal man with a normal life. Jin studied him. Then slowly, he smiled. You really love her. More than anything. And the boys? Dae-hyun's expression softened. I'd die for them. Jin nodded. Then I hope Kaito accepts your deal. Because if he doesn't, this city's going to burn. At Amara's house, morning light filtered through the kitchen windows. She'd been awake all night, watching Daehyun's men patrol the street. They were good, professional, invisible to anyone who didn't know what to look for. But she saw them, saw the shadows moving, the cars that appeared and disappeared, the silent guardians keeping watch. Daehyun had left an hour ago, kissed her forehead, promised he'd fix everything, and then walked out the door like he was going to war. Maybe he was. She made coffee, fed the boys breakfast, pretended everything was normal, but Elijah saw through it. "Mom, where did Daehyun go?" She paused. "He had some business to take care of." "Is he coming back?" "Yes, baby, he's coming back." "Promise?" She wanted to promise. Wanted to tell her son that the man who'd spent one night protecting them would be there forever. But she'd learned the hard way not to make promises she couldn't keep. "I hope so," she said instead. Isaiah was quiet. He'd been quiet since last night, since hiding under the bed, since the fear that had gripped him hadn't quite let go. Amara sat beside him. "You okay, sweetheart?" He nodded, but his eyes told a different story. "You were scared last night," she said gently. Another nod. "Me too." Isaiah looked up, surprised. "You were?" "Of course. When someone we love is in danger, it's okay to be scared." But Daehyun wasn't scared. I think he was. He just didn't show it. That's what grown-ups do sometimes. We hide our fear so the people we love don't have to feel it. Isaiah thought about that. Is Daehyun in danger now? Amara's heart clenched. "I don't know, baby. I don't want him to get hurt. Me neither. Do you love him?" The question hit her like a physical blow. Did she? After everything? After 8 years of anger and hurt and building walls so high she thought nothing could breach them? "Yes," she whispered. "I do." Isaiah hugged her. And Amara held him, praying that the man she loved would come back alive. The warehouse was exactly as Daehyun remembered. Empty, cold, echoing. This was where he'd made his first major deal 15 years ago, where he'd proven himself to the old guard, where he'd become someone to fear. Now it would be where he walked away from it all. Kaido was already there, standing in the center of the space, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. He was alone, as promised. No guards, no weapons visible, just two men about to decide the future. "Daehyun," Kaido said, his voice smooth. "I have to admit, I didn't think you'd actually show. I keep my word." "Yes, you always have. It's one of the things I've always respected about you." Kaido walked closer. "So, you wanted to talk." "I'm listening." Daehyun didn't waste time. "I'm stepping down, giving up the empire, all of it. Territory, operations, connections. It's yours." Kaido raised an eyebrow. "Just like that?" "Just like that. And in return, you leave my family alone, permanently." Kaido smiled. "The woman and the boys, I heard about them. Didn't believe it at first. The great Daehyun, falling in love, having children. It seemed impossible. Believe it. And you'd give up everything for them?" "Yes." Kaido studied him. "You know what people will say, don't you? That you went soft, that a woman made you weak, that you couldn't handle the pressure." "I don't care what people say." "You should. Reputation is everything in our world." "It's not my world anymore." Kaido laughed. "You really mean it. You're actually walking away." "I am. And what makes you think I'll honor this agreement? What's to stop me from taking your empire and still going after your family?" Daehyun's eyes darkened. "Because if you do, I'll come back. And when I do, I won't be bound by rules or honor or deals. I'll destroy everything you've ever built, everyone you've ever loved. I'll burn your organization to the ground and salt the earth so nothing ever grows there again. The threat hung in the air. Kaido stopped smiling. You'd start a war. I'd end one. Permanently. Silence. Long. Heavy. Then Kaido nodded slowly. You're serious. As I've ever been about anything. Kaido considered this. I want everything. Territory, supply lines, contacts, safe houses. Everything. You'll have it. And you disappear. Completely. No interference, no consulting. No helping your old lieutenants set up their own operations. Agreed. How long do you need? 1 week to transfer assets. 2 weeks to tie up loose ends. 1 week. Total. After that, if I see you involved in any operations, any deals, anything, the agreement is void. Daehyun nodded. 1 week. Kato extended his hand. Then we have a deal. Daehyun shook it. The handshake that ended his empire. The handshake that bought his family's safety. The handshake that changed everything. One more thing, Kaido said. I'm curious. What made you change? 8 years ago, you threw her away. Now you're giving up everything for her. What happened? Daehyun thought about Isaiah hiding under the bed, about Elijah asking if he was staying, about Amara's hand in his, trusting him despite everything. I realized I was building the wrong empire, he said quietly. Kaido smiled. Maybe you're not as stupid as I thought. Good luck, Daehyun. You're going to need it. Being normal is harder than being powerful. I'll take my chances. Daehyun walked out of the warehouse and didn't look back. By the time he reached Amara's house, it was mid-morning. The boys were at school. Amara was in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a coffee mug, her eyes red from lack of sleep. She looked up when he entered. Is it done? It's done. And we're safe. All of us. Her eyes filled with tears. What did it cost you? Everything I don't need anymore. She stood, her hands shaking. Daehyun, I have 1 week to transfer everything. Then I'm out. Completely. No more empire. No more danger. Just life. And you're okay with that? He walked to her, his hands cupping her face. Amara, I spent 15 years building something that couldn't love me back. That couldn't laugh with me. That couldn't give me sons who look at me like I'm their whole world. I don't want that anymore. I want this. I want you. I want them. I want Saturday morning pancakes and soccer practice and arguing about bedtime. I want normal. I want real. She was crying now. Full tears. 8 years of walls crumbling. What if you regret it? I won't. What if you miss it? I won't. What if it's not enough? He kissed her. Soft. Deep. Full of every promise he'd never made before. You're everything, he whispered against her lips. You always were. I was just too stupid to see it. She kissed him back. And for the first time in 8 years, she let herself believe. That night, when the boys came home from school, Daehyun told them. They sat in the living room, Elijah and Isaiah on the couch, Amara beside them, Daehyun standing because he was too nervous to sit. I want to talk to you about something, he said. The boys looked at him, curious. I'm going to be around a lot more. Every day, actually. I'm moving here, if that's okay with you. Elijah's eyes went wide. Like, living here? If your mom says yes? Amara smiled through her tears. I say yes. Isaiah was quiet. Then softly. Does that mean you're our dad? Like for real? Daehyun's throat closed. If you'll let me be. Elijah jumped up. Yes. Can we tell the kids at school? You can tell anyone you want. Isaiah stood too, slower, more careful. He walked to Daehyun and looked up at him with those eyes. Daehyun's eyes. filled with something fragile and hopeful. Will you leave again? Dae-hyun knelt down so they were eye level. No, I'm staying, forever. Promise? I promise, Isaiah. I'm never leaving you again. Isaiah hugged him. And Dae-hyun held his son and felt something he'd never felt in 30 years of living. Complete. That week was chaos. Dae-hyun transferred assets, signed documents, met with lieutenants, and explained his decision. Some understood, some were angry, some were confused. But by the end of the week, it was done. The empire that had taken 15 years to build was gone in 7 days. And Dae-hyun had never felt lighter. On the 8th day, he woke up in Amara's house, his house now, to the sound of the boys arguing downstairs about who got the last waffle. He smiled, got dressed, walked downstairs. Morning, Dad, Elijah called out. Dad. The word still hit him every time. Morning, buddy. Isaiah looked up. Can you make more waffles? I can make whatever you want. Amara walked in, her hair still messy from sleep, her smile soft. Look at you, domestic. He kissed her. Get used to it. She laughed. That sound he'd missed for 8 years. I think I will. And as Dae-hyun stood in the kitchen, making waffles for his sons while the woman he loved drank coffee and watched him with eyes full of something he didn't deserve but would spend the rest of his life earning, he realized something. He'd spent 30 years searching for power, but he'd finally found what he was really looking for. Home. 6 months later. Dae-hyun stood in the backyard of a house he'd never imagined owning. Not a penthouse with a view of the city he'd once controlled. Not a fortress with armed guards and bulletproof glass. Just a simple 2-story home with a white fence, a garden Amara had planted, and a tire swing he'd hung from the old oak tree last weekend. The house was in a quiet neighborhood 40 minutes outside the city. Tree-lined streets, families, children riding bikes, soccer games in the park. Everything he'd never known he wanted. Elijah and Isaiah ran past him, chasing each other with water guns, their laughter filling the summer air. They were bigger now, growing faster than he could keep up with. Elijah had lost his 2 front teeth. Isaiah had just learned to ride a bike without training wheels. Dad, come play, Elijah shouted. Dad. The word still made his chest ache in the best possible way. 6 months, and he still wasn't used to it. Still felt that surge of overwhelming gratitude every time one of them said it. Give me a second, he called back. He was building a treehouse. Something he'd promised them months ago. Something he'd never built before, never even thought about building. But now, it was all he wanted to do. Create something with his hands that wasn't empire or control or power, just wood and nails, and a place where his sons could play. Amara stepped out onto the porch, a glass of lemonade in her hand, her smile soft and real. She wore a sundress, her hair pulled back, her feet bare. She looked peaceful, happy. Nothing like the terrified woman he'd found 8 years ago when she'd discovered she was pregnant. You're getting soaked, she said, gesturing to his shirt. He looked down. The water guns had hit their target. Worth it. She laughed and walked over, handing him the lemonade. He drank, grateful. The summer heat was brutal, and he'd been working on the treehouse since dawn. How's it coming? She asked. Almost done. Another day. Maybe 2. They're going to love it. I hope so. She looked at him, her eyes searching. Are you happy? The question caught him off guard. Not because he didn't know the answer, but because 6 months ago, he wouldn't have understood what happiness even meant. Yes, he said simply. I am. Even with all this? She gestured to the house, the yard, the normal suburban life that was so different from everything he'd known. especially with all this. She smiled and kissed his cheek. Good, because I need your help inside. The sink's making that noise again. He groaned. I just fixed that last week. I know. Fix it again. Yes, ma'am. She laughed and went back inside. And Dae-hyun stood there, covered in sweat and water, holding a hammer and a glass of lemonade, watching his sons play. This was his empire now. And it was perfect. The first month had been the hardest. Adjusting to a life without power, without danger, without the constant adrenaline of survival. He'd wake up in the middle of the night, instincts screaming, reaching for weapons that weren't there. He'd hear a car backfire and his body would go rigid, ready for war. He'd see a stranger at the grocery store and his mind would calculate threats, exits, vulnerabilities. But slowly, gradually, it faded. The tension in his shoulders loosened. The nightmares became less frequent. The hypervigilance dulled to something manageable. Amara had been patient with him, understanding. She'd held him through the bad nights, talked him down from the panic, reminded him that he was safe, that they were safe. The boys helped too. It was impossible to stay trapped in the past when Elijah needed help with his math homework, or Isaiah wanted to show him a new drawing. They pulled him into the present, into their world of soccer practice and school projects and bedtime stories. He'd started a legitimate business, a security consulting firm. It used his skills, his knowledge, but without the violence, without the blood. He advised small businesses on protecting their assets, trained corporate security teams, installed alarm systems. It wasn't glamorous. The money was a fraction of what he'd made before. But it was honest, and that mattered. Amara had been surprised when the first paycheck came in. You're really doing this, she'd said, staring at the bank statement. Did you think I wouldn't? I don't know. Part of me thought you'd get bored, that you'd miss the excitement. I don't miss it at all. Not even a little? He'd thought about it honestly. Sometimes I miss the simplicity of it. Everything was clear. You had enemies and allies, threats and opportunities. There was no gray area. But this? He gestured to the house, to their life. This is harder. And better. She'd kissed him then, and he'd known he'd made the right choice. 3 months in, Isaiah had a nightmare. Dae-hyun heard him crying from down the hall and went to check on him. The boy was sitting up in bed, tears streaming down his face, his body shaking. Hey, Dae-hyun said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed. What's wrong, buddy? Bad dream. Want to talk about it? Isaiah hesitated, then nodded. I dreamed you left, that you went back to your old life and didn't come back. Dae-hyun's heart broke. Isaiah, I'm not going anywhere. I promised you, remember? But what if you change your mind? What if you get bored with us? Bored with you? Dae-hyun pulled him close. That's impossible. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. You and your brother and your mom. Nothing in my old life was even close to this. Really? Really. Isaiah was quiet for a moment. Can you stay until I fall asleep? I'll stay as long as you need. Dae-hyun sat with him, holding his hand, until the boy's breathing evened out and sleep took him. And even then, he stayed a while longer, just to be sure. 4 months in, Dae-hyun realized he wanted to marry Amara. Not eventually, not someday. Now. He wanted to make it official, wanted the boys to have his name, wanted her to be his wife in every legal and meaningful way. But first, he needed to ask the boys. They were old enough to have a say, old enough to understand what it meant. He took them out for ice cream one Saturday afternoon, just the 3 of them. They sat in the park, eating their cones, talking about nothing important. And then Dae-hyun took a breath and said, Can I ask you guys something serious? Elijah and Isaiah exchanged glances. Sure, Elijah said. What do you think about me marrying your mom? Elijah's eyes went wide. Like for real? Like a wedding? Yeah, like a wedding. Would you be our dad forever then? Isaiah asked. I'm already your dad forever. But yes, it would make it official. You'd have my last name if you wanted. We'd be a real family. Legally. Elijah grinned. Can we be in the wedding? Of course. Can I wear a suit? The fanciest suit we can find. Isaiah was quieter. Does Mom know you're asking us first? No. I wanted to make sure you were okay with it before I asked her. Isaiah thought about this. Then he smiled. I think you should ask her. I think she'll say yes. You think so? She loves you. We can tell. Daehyun's throat tightened. I love her too, and I love you guys, more than anything. Elijah held up his ice cream cone. To family! They clinked their cones together, laughing when ice cream dripped everywhere. And Daehyun knew. This was right. This was everything. He planned the proposal for 2 weeks. Nothing extravagant. No fancy restaurant or public spectacle. Just something meaningful. Something them. He decided on the backyard, under the string lights they'd hung together last month. The boys helped him plan every detail. Elijah wanted music. Isaiah wanted flowers. Daehyun wanted it to be perfect. On a Friday evening after dinner, he led Amara outside. The boys were hiding behind the porch, barely containing their excitement. The lights glowed softly overhead. Roses, her favorite, lined the walkway he'd built. What's all this? She asked, her eyes wide. Just something I needed to do. He got down on one knee. Her hands flew to her mouth, tears already forming. Amara, 8 years ago, I made the worst mistake of my life. I let you go. I chose power over love, fear over faith. I hurt you in ways I can never fully make right. But you gave me a second chance. You let me into your life, into your home, into your heart. You let me be a father to our sons. And every day with you has been a gift I don't deserve, but will spend the rest of my life earning. He pulled out the ring. Simple, elegant, perfect. Will you marry me? She was crying now, full, uncontrolled tears. Yes, she whispered. Yes, yes, yes. He slid the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into his arms. The boys burst from their hiding spot, cheering, running toward them. They all hugged together, a tangle of arms and laughter and joy. Can we tell everyone at school? Elijah asked. You can tell anyone you want, Amara said, laughing through her tears. Isaiah looked up at Daehyun. Does this mean we're really a family now? We were always a family, buddy. This just makes it official. They got married 3 months later. Small ceremony. Just close friends, Amara's family, and the boys. Jin came too. He'd started his own legitimate security firm and had stayed in touch. He was the only one from Daehyun's old life who'd made the transition. Elijah and Isaiah wore matching suits and carried the rings down the aisle with such serious concentration that half the guests were tearing up before the ceremony even started. Amara wore a simple white dress that made Daehyun forget how to breathe. When she walked down the aisle, when her eyes met his, he felt it. The absolute certainty that this was exactly where he was meant to be. The officiant asked him to say his vows. Daehyun looked at Amara, at the boys standing beside them, at the people gathered to celebrate. I spent most of my life believing love was weakness, he said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. That caring about someone gave them power over you. That the only way to survive was to stay alone, stay cold, stay in control. I was wrong about everything. Love isn't weakness. It's the only thing that ever made me strong. Amara, you saved me. Not from my enemies or my past, but from myself. You showed me what it means to be human, to be real, to be worthy of something more than fear and power. I promise to spend every day of the rest of my life being the man you deserve, the father our children deserve, the husband you chose to believe in. Amara was crying. So were half the guests. Your turn, the officiant said gently. She wiped her eyes, laughing through tears. You broke my heart 8 years ago, shattered it into pieces I didn't think I could put back together. But somehow, impossibly, you did. You came back. You fought for us. You chose us when it would have been easier to walk away. You gave up everything to protect our family. And every day since, you've proven that people can change. That second chances are real. That love is worth the risk. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want to face it with you. Today. Tomorrow. Forever. They kissed. The boys cheered. Jin whistled. And Dae-hyun, the man who'd once controlled a city through fear, smiled wider than he'd ever smiled in his life. 1 year later, Amara told him she was pregnant. They were in the kitchen, the boys at school, the house quiet. She handed him a positive pregnancy test, her eyes nervous and hopeful. Dae-hyun stared at it, then at her. Then back at the test. Are you serious? I'm serious. He picked her up, spinning her around, laughing like a child. We're having another baby? We're having another baby. He set her down gently, his hands on her face. I love you. I love you too. When do we tell the boys? Tonight? Tonight. That evening, they sat the boys down. Elijah was 9 now. Isaiah was quieter, but more confident. They'd grown so much in the past year. We have some news, Amara said. The boys looked at each other, curious. You're going to be big brothers, Dae-hyun said. Silence. Then, what? Elijah jumped up. Are you serious? Very serious. Is it a boy or a girl? We don't know yet. When? In about 7 months. Isaiah was smiling, quiet, but genuinely happy. That's cool. Yeah, Elijah agreed. That's really cool. 7 months later, Mia was born. 6 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. Beautiful. With Amara's smile and Dae-hyun's eyes. When the nurse placed her in his arms, Dae-hyun felt something click into place. Something he hadn't even known was missing. Hi, princess, he whispered. I'm your dad. She yawned, and he was completely, utterly hers. 3 years passed. Elijah and Isaiah were 12 now. Tall, smart, kind. They played soccer, did well in school, had friends. Normal kids with a past they didn't fully understand yet. Mia was 3, a whirlwind of energy and laughter and endless questions. One evening, while Dae-hyun was tucking Mia into bed, she looked up at him with sleepy eyes. Daddy? Yeah, princess? Do you love me? His heart melted. More than anything in the world. More than Elijah and Isaiah? I love you all the same. All my kids are my favorite. She smiled, satisfied, and fell asleep seconds later. Dae-hyun stood there, watching her breathe, and realized something. This was his legacy. Not territory or power or fear. These 3 children, this woman, this life. When Elijah and Isaiah turned 13, they started asking harder questions. Real questions about his past. Who he'd been. What he'd done. Dae-hyun had known this day would come, had prepared for it, but it was still terrifying. They were at dinner. Mia was drawing at the table. Amara was watching carefully, and then Elijah asked, Dad, what did you do before? Before us? Dae-hyun set down his fork. I ran a criminal organization. The boys went quiet. Like the mafia? Isaiah asked. Similar. I controlled territory, ran illegal operations, hurt people who threatened me. Did you kill people? Elijah's voice was small. Dae-hyun chose his words carefully. I ordered things done that I'm not proud of. I made choices that hurt people. I was a bad person for a long time. Why? Because I thought power was the only thing that mattered, that being feared was the same as being respected. I was wrong. Isaiah looked at him. What changed? Your mom. You. Finding out I had children made me realize I'd spent my whole life chasing the wrong things. Do you regret it? Elijah asked. Giving it all up? Dae-hyun looked at his family, at Amara, at the boys, at Mia drawing with crayons, at the life they'd built. Not for a second, he said. Not even a little bit. Elijah nodded slowly. I think you're a good person now. I'm trying to be. I think you're doing a good job, Isaiah added quietly. Dae-hyun's throat closed. Thank you, boys. That night, after the kids were asleep, Amara found him on the porch, staring at the stars. You okay? She asked. Yeah, just thinking. About? About how lucky I am. She sat beside him, her hand finding his. We're the lucky ones. How do you figure? Because you chose us. You could have kept your empire, your power, your control, but you chose love instead. You chose family. Not everyone does that. He looked at her. It wasn't a choice. It was survival. I couldn't live without you anymore. She kissed him, soft, sweet, full of 15 years of history and pain and healing. I'm proud of you, she whispered. For what? For becoming the man you were always meant to be. 5 years later, Dae-hyun stood in the backyard of their home, watching his family. Elijah and Isaiah were 18 now, graduating high school, college-bound. Men in their own right. Mia was 8, smart, funny, fearless. Amara stood beside him, her hair starting to gray, her smile still the same. Can you believe it's been 13 years? She asked. No, he admitted. Feels like yesterday. Any regrets? He looked at her, at the boys teaching Mia how to throw a football, at the life they'd built from ashes and second chances. Not a single one, he said. This is everything I never knew I needed. She leaned against him. I love you. I love you too. And as the sun set over their backyard, over their home, over their family, Dae-hyun realized something profound. He'd spent 30 years building an empire of fear, but the only empire worth having was this one, built on love, on trust, on the belief that people could change, that second chances were real. That family was the only power that mattered. He'd been a king once, feared by thousands, respected by none. Now he was just a man, a husband.
Wait, before the video ends, listen. If you've ever felt invisible, unnoticed, like the person you love doesn't really see you, this is for you. You can feel that closeness again, that spark, that connection, the way it used to be. But you have to take the first step. Scan the QR code now. Don't wait. Your chance to be seen, to be noticed, to be wanted. It's right here, right now.